Jang-won, and it's good to have you with us. On today's show, we'll be discussing with a guest the prospects of a second North Korea-US summit after President Trump said that another meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un was, quote, most likely to happen. We'll also talk more on the separated family reunions which are currently taking place. On that note, let's turn to Devin Whiting at the News Centre for the latest on that, along with our other headlines at this hour. Devin?
Hi, Jung-ho. Starting with those reunions, they are now in their second day. Families from South and North, torn apart by the Korean War in the early 1950s, are together for the first time in almost 70 years. Heart-wrenching scenes at North Korea's Mount Kumgang for these very elderly men and women who know they'll probably never see each other again. Today, though, they're getting a little more private time together. Our Oh Jung-hee is covering the event for us this week, and she joins us now. Jung-hee, what have we seen so far today, and what's left on the schedule for this round of reunions?
Devin, it's the day 2 of the 3-day-long family reunions, and today the families from South Korea get to spend 5 hours in total with their North Korean relatives. They've already spent 3 hours together this morning. At 10 this morning, the families gathered at the Waegeumgang Hotel, located within the Mount Kumgang Resort, with hands full of presents to give each other, and spent 3 hours just by themselves in assigned rooms, eating lunch together for the last 1 hour. This session took place behind closed doors, so it wasn't open to the joint press pool there, and therefore we don't have any footage of it. But it's pretty apparent that the families had a chance to speak more candidly with each other than at the public reunions because they were away from the eyes of South and North Korean officials. It's the first time in history that these inter-Korean reunions that families have had the chance to share a meal just by themselves. In the past, they always had to eat at a joint luncheon, but for this round, the South and North Korean authorities agreed to allow a private lunch to give them an extra hour to themselves, making it 3 hours in private rather than 2. Right now, they're in a joint session that started at 3 p.m. and will go until 5. We will be able to hear more about it from the joint press pool there at Mount Kumgang Resort, and I will be bringing you more updates in our later newscast. Devin?
All right, we'll be looking forward to it. Thank you for that, Jung-hee. Now, there have been concerns in some quarters that the improvements in inter-Korean ties are getting ahead of North Korea's denuclearization. The U.S. State Department, for one, is standing firm in its position that ties must move forward in step with the denuclearization process. A State Department official responding to an inquiry by South Korea's Yonhap news agency said the U.S. is aware that the two Koreas plan to open a joint liaison office in Kaesong. South Korea has said the project would not violate international sanctions on the North. The U.S. official wouldn't comment on that issue, but they did say the sanctions will remain valid until the regime is denuclearized completely. On Tuesday, VOA cited a State Department official as saying the two Koreas' project to modernize roads in the North also needs to go in line with Pyongyang's denuclearization. BMW Korea has had to recall more than 100,000 vehicles after dozens of late-model sedans caught fire. The problem is believed to be related to a faulty engine part, but now South Korea's transport ministry says it will test the cars subject to the recall to find out what's wrong with them and finish the tests by the end of this year. Choi Si-young reports.
Korea Transportation Safety Authority, the investigative arm of the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, announced on Monday it'll find out the cause of the BMW engine fires within this year. The investigative agency said it'll purchase the same model subject to recall and run several tests on the vehicles to look for defects. It said that a team of experts, including both government officials and civilians, will supervise the tests. The agency added it'll also look into the software that runs the engine components known as EGR, or exhaust gas recirculation, to see if this malfunctions. The agency had called on BMW 3 times to submit documents showing the technical details of the engine parts, but the automaker either didn't respond or submitted incomplete documents.
Only after the government began a probe did BMW admit to its faulty parts and initiate a recall.
Meanwhile, another BMW has caught fire in South Korea even after passing the safety checks. A BMW 520D sedan caught fire slightly before 5 p.m. on Monday as it traveled on a highway in the city of Mungyang, some 150 kilometers southeast of Seoul. The car had passed the required safety checks 2 weeks ago. BMW Korea is yet to comment on the incident. On Tuesday, the Korea Consumer Association revealed that as of Monday, more than 1,500 owners wanted to take part in the lawsuit against the German automaker. Haeon Law Firm said it'll file the complaint on behalf of the owners within this month. Choi Si-young, Arirang News.
In other news, Korea is in the crosshairs of Typhoon Soulik. Right now, the storm is just south of Japan, but over the next few days, forecasters expect it to keep moving northwest and land a direct hit on South and North Korea. Han Soo-ah has the details.
The 19th typhoon of the season is on course to hit the Korean peninsula. It will be the first typhoon in 6 years to directly pass across the peninsula. The whole country is under the direct influence of the typhoon, and heavy rains, large waves, and strong winds are expected. According to the Korea Meteorological Administration, the typhoon, which formed near Guam in the middle of last week, is approaching Jeju Island. It will bring heavy rains and strong winds to Jeju Island tomorrow night and will move up toward Mokpo on Thursday morning. The entire nation will be soaked by rain on Thursday and Friday. From Wednesday to Thursday, Jeju Island is forecast to get more than 50 millimeters of rain per hour. Some other areas will receive more than 400 millimeters of rainfall in total. As the wind speed is projected to be almost 89 miles per hour, Soulik may cause as much damage as Typhoon Samba, which directly hit the country in 2012, leaving 2 dead and 2 injured and flooding hundreds of homes and buildings. Prime Minister Lee Na-kyun at a cabinet meeting this morning urged related authorities and ministries to prepare for the damage, including human casualties. The Prime Minister emphasized the safety of students who are going back to school after vacation. He was also concerned about farmers who have already suffered from the recent heat wave and could see more damage from the typhoon. However, depending on the atmospheric conditions in the North Pacific, there is also a possibility of the typhoon heading out into the West Sea and bypassing the Korean peninsula. Han Soo-ah, Arirang News.
I'm Devin Whiting, and those are your news headlines.
When President Trump concluded his summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Singapore last June, he said they'd be meeting once again more often in the future. The American leader has stoked that prospect in an interview on Monday, reiterating his, quote, great chemistry with Kim. It seems that despite the slow progress on the regime's denuclearization in recent weeks, it hasn't put off Trump from wanting another sit-down. Our Foreign Ministry correspondent Lee Ji-won has this report.
U.S. President Donald Trump says he would most likely meet again with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, hinting at a possible second summit between the leaders of 2 longtime adversaries following their historic first-ever summit in June. Speaking to Reuters on Monday, President Trump answered a question on another meeting with Kim, but added that he did not want to comment further. He also offered no details on the timing or venue. And despite the widespread skepticism that Pyongyang is not taking concrete measures in dismantling its nuclear program, President Trump said he believes the North Koreans had taken specific steps to denuclearize without elaborating. President Trump also pointed out how Kim Jong-un handed over 3 American detainees even before the Singapore summit. Trump has come under fire from his critics for making too many concessions to Pyongyang, including its decision to actually hold the Singapore summit and suspending Washington's joint military drills with South Korea. President Trump, however, remains optimistic, insisting that a lot of good things are happening with North Korea. But he also complained that China is not helping as much as it had in the past because of its trade dispute with the U.S. During the interview, President Trump patted himself on the back, saying that he, someone who's only been working on the North Korean issue for a matter of months, stopped the regime's nuclear and missile testing, something his predecessors who had been working on the issue for 30 years couldn't do. Trump also pointed to the great chemistry he shared with Kim as one reason that helped ease last year's tensions between the two sides. Trump said he and the North Korean leader like each other, adding he has very good personal relations with Kim, which is what he thinks is holding the situation together. 이지원, Arirang News.
Joining us in the studio to talk through these latest developments, we have with us Dr. Woo Jung-yup from the Sejong Institute. Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Now, as you just saw, Donald Trump had an interview with Reuters where he was asked about a second summit with Kim Jong-un, whether that was on the cards, and he said it was, quote, most likely. But what was interesting was he refused to give any details about a time or location or anything really concrete. What can we read from his statements there?
I think he has an intention to meet Chairman Kim Jong-un again in the near future to solve the issue of the denuclearization of North Korea. So one positive side of his interview yesterday was that President Trump has still interest in engaging North Korea, and he still believes that engaging North Korea can bear the positive fruit, which is denuclearization of North Korea. But one negative side of his direct involvement with Kim Jong-un on this issue is that working level talks are almost meaningless for North Korea. So Kim Jong-un and North Korean media argues that President Trump is willing to concede many things with regard to the North Korea's demand, whereas many working group advisors of President Trump has refused to cooperate with North Korea's because they demand so many things which North Korea does not want to give up. So I think that if President Trump has to involve so many things, then it's almost difficult for the working levels, even including Secretary Pompeo, to negotiate with North Koreans.
So you say there, even Secretary of State Pompeo discussing negotiating with North Korea might not be enough to bear fruit. Does that mean, so Pompeo has been rumored to make a visit to Pyongyang soon, and but there's still no confirmation on the date yet. We thought they would be discussing denuclearization, but do you think now the main agenda will be trying to fix a date for a summit? Because, as you said, can denuclearization be really only settled by the two top men of the US and North Korea?
We hope to see a much more detailed process or detailed schedule of denuclearization of North Korea by the visit of Secretary Pompeo to Pyongyang. So he's almost like second highest person in the U.S. government for the diplomacy, except for the President Trump. And even for him, in his third visit in July to Pyongyang, he didn't get anything from North Korea with regard to the denuclearization process. So many people has a doubt that what kind of deliverables he can get from North Korea this time. And with this interview of President Trump on the possibility of having second summit with Chairman Kim Jong-un, I think the chances are much more less than before for him to have a fruitful talk with the North Koreans about denuclearization. So I think it's more of scheduling and the possibility of having second summit between President Trump and Chairman Kim. So
you think without, if I reiterate, if you think without a second summit, there really can be no progress towards denuclearization?
There is no real sign that there has been progress since his third visit on Pyongyang in July. So there was critics say that even the fourth visit by Secretary Pompeo is also fruitless. But with the President Trump's interview insinuating that he's interested in the second summit with Kim Jong-un, I think North Koreans are more interested in talking directly to the President Trump rather than talking to the Secretary Pompeo, which they believe that Secretary Pompeo is not as willing as President Trump to give concession to North Korea.
Interesting. During this interview, Trump also said that when he was asked about whether he believed North Korea had taken any specific steps towards denuclearization, he said that he does believe that they have. But again, he didn't elaborate on what steps he thinks North Korea has taken. There has been some reports that a nuclear missile site and a nuclear missile engine test site has been dismantled, but there's been no real sign of denuclearization as of yet. Do you think the Trump or the US intelligence have information that we're not aware of, or is Trump just giving lip service to the North Koreans?
I think in most part of his interview yesterday was kind of saying good things for North Koreans, because I think that shows his willingness to continue the talks with the North Koreans for the purpose of denuclearization of North Korea. So I think he needs to say like good things about North Koreans, and he mentioned yesterday about the suspension of nuclear tests and suspension of missile tests, and he didn't mention anything in more detail. So I think that even without any further information on the denuclearization process of North Korea, President Trump, as he said good things about North Korea's willingness of denuclearization, I think he actually gave pressure to North Korea to show him something in the near future, so he can have a good relations with North Korea and have possibility of summit with Kim Jong-un.
Before we move on, can I ask you, let's say, compared to the past, can we maybe take a barometer reading of the situation right now? Compared to the past, with previous deals with North Korea and the US and with South Korea as well, how would you compare that to the situation now? How hopeful do you think we can be towards North Korea making real steps towards denuclearization and making progress towards changing the situation on the Korean Peninsula?
So in the previous, such as like 2005 September agreement between six party countries, it was mostly about the future nuclear weapons and revealing North Korea's nuclear program, which North Korea did not follow up. And this time, many people believe that it's because of North Korea's fear of like further sanctions and the military attacks by the United States. So North Korea is much more willing than before to comply with the international pressure on denuclearization. But it seems like there is no real progress, because there has been reports that United States demand North Korea to submit the declaration of their nuclear programs, but there is no report that North Korea has ever given it to the United States. So I think that there's a higher hope this time because of all the sanctions and international pressures on North Korea. So North Korea might change its strategic calculation. But so far, we didn't have any concrete evidences that North Korea is giving up its nuclear weapons. So maybe there is a higher hope, but there's no real evidence compared to the previous agreements or negotiations in the past.
I guess we have to cling on to that hopes for now. Moving from the US-North Korea summit, so let's talk about the Inter-Korean summit. So we've heard that the two Koreas have said they've agreed to meet in September sometime. That's actually led to now the Russian officials saying that although they invited both Moon Jae-in and Kim Jong-un to the Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok, also in September, that it looks like they won't be coming anymore. The forum was set to be in September 11th to 13th. Can we expect the summit, the Inter-Korean summit now, to take place around that time?
I think that during the high-level talks to schedule the summit in September, since it was not confirmed for the President Xi of China to visit Pyongyang or Secretary Pompeo's visit to Pyongyang. So North Korea and South Korean government has to take those events into account to schedule the date for the third summit. So I think that they had some window of the setting the date for the summit. So it should be after the celebration of the North Korea's founding day, which is September 9th. So South Korean government, for various reasons, we cannot go there before the September 9th. And there's a UN General Assembly from 25th, and maybe President Moon Jae-in is going to attend the General Assembly, and there's a Chuseok holidays. So we have small windows in September, which is after September 10th and before September 18th. So I think that those dates that you just mentioned, 11th to 13th, might be the higher possibility than other dates to have a summit in Pyongyang between President Moon and the Chairman Kim.
We know Russia has been a bit more sidelined towards the situation with North Korea in recent years, but how do you think this kind of message sends to the fact that President Moon Jae-in and Kim Jong-un won't be going to the Eastern Economic Forum, and President Putin won't have this chance to meet these two leaders?
If the situation is like before the April this year, where there's less chance for two leaders to meet and the inter-Korean relations has not like improved yet, then that kind of opportunity offered by Russian government to like set a place for the summit is welcome. Probably welcomed by both sides, but now two leaders has to think of the optics and their own political reasons that they believe that it's not really great for them to have summit in like third-party countries.
Now let's move on to the separated family reunions that are taking place this week. So far, it's been an emotional and heartbreaking stories coming out of there. But so far, there's been no response from North Korea at the moment. No mention of it in North Korean state media so far. How do you think they will respond, though? Like, how will they take this? And what do the North Koreans really want to try and get out of this separated family reunions?
So there are various reasons why North Koreans are very cautious on approaching the family reunion. It's because that their political system is totally different from ours. That is why family reunion is almost every time taking place in northern side, because they have to control their population and the families, and they have all the like people to control the family reunion, so they have to know what they are talking about. So I think it's a one good thing that they allow families to have their own time at their room this time to have a like 1 hour lunch, which was not allowed before. So North Korea certainly shows some flexibility this time, but we don't know yet how far they can separate these humanitarian issues from the political issues.
During a meeting on Monday, President Moon said that bold action was needed to try and expand the separated family reunions for more people to happen more often. Of course, President Moon, his own family, is separated as well. How possible do you think that this could be expanded, and what could it look like?
I think it's mainly because the aging issues of the families separated by the war. So from like since 1988, those who registered for the family reunion was like 130,000 people. And now it's only like 57,000. That means that more than 70,000 people already passed away. So out of those like 57,000 separated people, that more than 60% are in their 80s. And about like 4,000 people like passed away every year. So those who register for the family reunion, like technically they don't have not so many years to live. So that is why President Moon said it's urgent to give them more chance to meet their family before they actually pass away.
Do you think that North Korea will allow that kind of thing to happen? Perhaps that the fact that, I don't want to sound morbid, but perhaps the fact that the population is getting older, the ones who are surviving, that it means for them it's more easier to control, that they might open the doors a little bit further.
So North Korea has not separated this humanitarian issue out of political issues, and their political system is totally different from ours. So they have to have a tight control of the population. So I think it's very difficult for them to pick who's going to be in the family reunion this year, because they always want to prefer someone who's been successful in North Korean society to meet their relatives from like South Korea. So, and even the tracing the family trees are very difficult for North Koreans. So I think for various reasons, administrative reasons and political reasons, it's very difficult for North Korean government to positively respond to the President Moon's idea yesterday.
That'll be sad news for the people who are separated, but we hope they still can be expanded. One quick, let's have one quick more opinion on this report that's coming out of North Korea as well. It says there are reports coming that say North Korea has decided not to use children in the mass games event taking place next month for the anniversary of the regime's foundation. Now, the mass games has always been famous for the children performers showcasing incredible acrobatic performances in eerily synchronized fashion. But there's always been international concern of exploitation of these children's rights. Do you think they're taking more notice, North Korea that is, of more notice of this international criticism?
So we all know that North Korea has like very bad record of like human rights, and like kids under like 6 or 7 years old were exploited for the like mass performance in 2008, and it was broadcasted. So I think that it is not officially mentioned by North Korean media, but there's a report that North Koreans are not going to have kids to perform this year. I think it's a good thing that North Korea is actually listening to some international critics about the human rights issue in North Korea.
That's all we have time for. Thank you for coming in as usual, and hope you can come join us next time for more.
Thank you very much.
More of your analysis.
Thank you.
That's it from us for now. I'll be back tomorrow with more insights and analysis from our panel of experts. In the meantime, stay tuned to Arirang for our later newscast for the latest from Korea and around the world. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Goodbye.